Hey there guys, this is AdamantLife. Welcome to the 1,000th episode of Big Picture Python. That's 12 episodes of starting with the big picture and filling in the nitty gritty as we go along. So we have a lot of work ahead of us today, and I'm going to be starting with the equipment edit frame. Our goals for today is to get all this stuff streamlined, non-interdependent, and extendable. So those are the things that we're going to be doing today. To start out with this equipment frame, basically I've been complaining for a long time that we have entirely too much in this section right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that we can iterate through and use iterators to do everything that we need to do. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a list, and I'm going to say equipment list in here is equal to, actually I'm going to say none. And the reason I'm going to do that is going to say in here equipment list equals weapon, shield, and backpack. The reason I'm doing this is because if we don't have an equipment list, if we're not given an equipment list, then we can just grab the basic equipment list. Otherwise, the user can define what equipment he wants the characters, or maybe not the user, but the programmer at any rate, can define what equipment he wants to display in this edit frame. So that's how we're going to start out. Alright, so if not equipment, then we grab the equipment frame's default equipment list, and then we set self.equipment as equipment. So a couple things here. First, I'm using lists here just to make sure that these lists don't get changed later. So this is going to create a copy of the list. And remember, in the past I mentioned in passing that slice notation with beginning and ending points on it will make a copy of the list anyway. Well, a slice notation in general. So that's just as a reminder the other way you can do that. Also to note, you'll see equipment frame.edit frame. So basically the way this works, and I haven't detailed this too much before, is when we define stuff up here in class, it becomes a class attribute. So this right here is a class reference. This define init is a class reference to init. And same thing down here with get. We define get underneath equipment edit frame, and it becomes a class attribute of get, which is a method of the class. So that's a little bit of a background, some details on what's going on and how classes kind of function. And actually thinking ahead, I'm going to have to change this list just a little bit. And we're going to do weapons, shields, and none, like that. So basically the user at this point is going to have to, or the programmer is going to have to realize that this is the way this is set up. And the reason I'm doing this is what I'll show you in just a moment. Alright, so what we want to do for this is to get this kind of streamlined and extendable and whatnot, and is we're going to want to create all these things through an iterator, through a loop. And what that will do is it will let us, instead of having to go through and add a new line each time we want to add, for example, if we wanted to add armor to this list, instead of having to go through and add TK label armor and then combo box with values of armors and etc. Instead, we can just add armor up here to this list like that, and then we don't have to touch anything down here. This just automatically adds this to the list. So that's what we're setting up right now. So that's this part right here. This next part, the icon, that comes from enumerate. Enumerate is going to take each of these and turn it into another tuple like this. So it's going to start at 0 and kind of append to what we have in this iterable right here, equipment list. It's going to append basically the index number, and we can change that so that it starts at any number. And if we don't want to do it that way, if we don't want numbers, if we need something else for this, we can also use the zip function. And the zip function will take two iterables and mesh them together. And then you can, that's something you're just gonna have to read up on your own. Assuming that we don't cover it in any of these episodes at any rate. So basically I'm just going to look at what I'm doing down below, and add it up here. Text equals. So the text I'm going to want to be equal to whatever we're iterating through. So weapon, for example. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the title method that strings have. This way, if we have a two-part thing, like for example, holy focus, let's say, or focus item, that way if it's a 2-word string, title will go ahead and uppercase both of those. That way it looks consistent. And then we're going to do grid. Row is going to be equal to I, that's why I added it. And then column is going to be the same for every iteration of this. So for the TK labels, they'll all be column 0. And for the combo boxes, the first set of combo boxes will be 1, second set will be 2, etc. And then here, the reason I put none up here in backpack is this way we can check if we have item names. And if we don't, then we can skip adding this combo box, otherwise we'll add it. Additionally, because we want to have this combo box as in class attribute, we're going to do set attribute self, and that's something we've done before in previous classes, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just going to go ahead and type the rest of this out because the rest of it should be fairly straightforward and understandable. I said that and then I didn't realize that's not entirely true. So what we'll do here to name it, though, is the part that you may not realize. And we will use a string and then format the string with the equip. And then the rest of this is straightforward. So basically, this will get us a string that has the, for example, weapon item name. And then set attribute will say self.weapon item name equals combo box. And then, like I said, the rest of this is fairly straightforward, so go ahead and start filling that out on your own, and then double check with me in case you need it corrected. Alright, so we went and replaced all that code we had before with this set of code, and now this set of code is efficient and effective for any length of list. So if we have 20 different pieces of equipment in this list, this is all the code we need instead of 20 times 4 lines of codes. So you can go ahead and look at that. One thing I will note is that I don't know if we changed this correctly. Yeah, I don't think we did in the previous edition. I think we still had this as name, so weapon name. This should be a weapon equipment name. That way we're consistent across our classes. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to cut this out. And this is going to be part of what I was talking about last time about how we shouldn't be doing things, different things in the same method. So I'm going to do a load character, self-character, self.character equals character. And then down here, we're just going to have to fix these so that we load it correctly. And I'm going to go ahead and do that myself. You go ahead and start trying to work on that. Do like maybe a couple lines and then you can unpause and see if you have it correct. Alright, so here we are. So for equip and item name and self.equipment list, so that we'll get this stuff. We're only actually going to be concerned about the first part, equipment. We won't be using item names this time. And then I will check, I will get the reference to the character's attribute. For example, if it's the character.weapon or the character.shield, I'll go ahead and get that now to make it easier to reference later. Similarly, I will get the widget now. And I added this special keyword none to the end of get attribute. This is the default keyword down here. Technically, this is a positional argument, but regardless. So if we don't have an attribute named, for example, backpack item name, which we don't, then it will return none instead. Otherwise, it would give us an error. It would raise an error, but instead we gave it a default value of none. Then we check if the character has that attribute. So for example, if character.shield equals none or false, we're not going to bother going through this. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and start filling it out. And then we check if we actually have the widget, for example, backpack.item name. And if we do, then we set the backpack.item name. And then the other two just work as normal because those aren't something that we set up as none. Capable of being none. So we're always going to have those attributes. So that should be good enough. And that, again, replaces these lines of code. Right now, it's fairly comparable in length. But again, if we had, 6 different pieces of equipment then all of a sudden this would be 6 times 3, or 6 times 3, different set calls. So obviously we're saving space in the long run by doing it this way. And again, it also allows us to at any point supply more equipment options, either at runtime through this equipment method or by changing this equipment list here. So that is good. One thing I will do right now is I will also add a clear, and that's going to be useful if this frame ends up getting reused later. The way we have our code set up right now, it shouldn't. Right now we're only using each frame once, and then we just recreate the frame if we need to load a different character. But on the off chance, I'll go ahead and set that up right now. Actually, I just realized as I was doing that made a little bit of a blunder there. This is actually going to have to get filled out for each one. So let's do that really quick. Material and equipment name. There we go. That was a bit silly of me. So anyway, up here, we'll just do the same. Alright, there we go, and I just got our attribute for item name, material name, and equipment name, and set them to none. So we should be good to go there. And then I set self.character equals none up here, self.character equals none here. And what I will do is I will add to this code up here in our initiate function. If we do get past a character, so if character does not equal none here, if character, self.load character, that way we can, when we create the frame, pass it our character and load it immediately. That's just kind of the convenience function. Alright, down here now. So I'm thinking I'm going to go fancy. Basically, we're going to do the same thing that we've been doing. Actually, I don't think I can go fancy with this one. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll give it a shot. So, in the meantime, you go ahead and start trying to fill the get section out. I'm thinking we're going to do it in the same way that we've been doing it before. So, you can go ahead and do that. And we will be returning a dictionary with the item attributes. That's what we'll be doing. And then we will, up top, be comparing the item attributes to the items that we already have to see if we need to change any of them. So you go ahead and do that now, and then you can unpause, whenever you feel like you're either stuck or you just want to see what I ended up with, or you get done, etc., etc. Alright, I decided to be super pretentious with this and go ahead and do it the fancy way. So this is a dictionary comprehension. Inside the dictionary comprehension, I create a dictionary as the item that I'm putting into the comprehension. And I'm iterating over the equipment list. For each equipment part in the equipment list, I create another dictionary. And that dictionary is an iteration through the various options that we have for this class. For example, weapon item name, weapon material, weapon equipment name. And it uses that attribute, so equipment name, item name, material, and then gets the value of that out of our widget. Like that. So, see if you can't figure that one out. Like I said, that's super involved. Otherwise, if you just break this apart, you can see exactly what it looks like from a standard perspective. So it looks something like that, and then we do, underscore equipped, dict equipped, and then material on the next line down here, and then underneath that we'll do dict equipped, equipment name. And that's what that would turn out to be. Like I said, I felt like having fun and doing it a really pretentious way, but whatever works. So, that should be this class wrapped up. So let's head up here and get this fixed up. Alright, so this much at least should be extremely straightforward. The load character we are adding, and so self.character equals character. Self.character name values is character.aliases. Set widget self.character name, or self.character. Either one works. A little bit unnecessary, but we will do it anyway. And then for alias and self.character.aliases, self.character.aliases.insert and alias. And then self.equipmentFrame.loadCharacter, so we just let that load itself. Very straightforward. I also added the clear in here, and I should have added this down here as well. self.clear. And I should have added it to the load character as well. Self.clear. There we go. That way these are clear before we start adding stuff to them. I added the if character self.load character up here as well. And up here we will add self.character equals none. Alright, so there's a couple things we gotta do to validate this before we get moving with save character. First thing we gotta do is we gotta check if not self.character. So if we didn't load a character into this frame, which theoretically is a possibility and will help us out and be more useful in the future, then what we're going to do is we're going to check if our character has a name. So long as our character has a name selected, we can create a character, otherwise we're going to run into problems. So if self.characterName.get, then we can do self.character equals character name self.charactername.get. So that will create a new character instance, and then we can start doing all the stuff that we were doing with the character before. We can, this will reset its name, which I'm not going to worry about. Obviously we're doubling up there, but it doesn't really matter. It's not an expensive process to do. It is completely insignificant. So, and then character aliases equals self.characteraliases.get. And equipment is now passing us a dictionary and is not modifying the character. So what we will do is we will take each of those and for our character we'll update, weapon, backpack, etc. So for key equip in equipment, so this is going to cycle through the different equipment types that we have in this dictionary that we pulled out. For example, weapon, shield, backpack. Alright, so this can get pretty involved. So for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if our character has the attribute. I'm going to do char equip equals get attribute character equip none. So what we've got to basically consider here is that our character may not actually have an equipment defaulted. For example, he may not start out with a basic, I think we said relic focus or something like that as our extraneous example down here. So he may not have a relic focus equipped at all, like not even a basic relic focus with a material. So in that case, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to handle that a little bit differently. Otherwise, we will go ahead and just update the attributes on the equipment itself. So if char equip, and I'm going to go ahead and add this really quick, equipped equipdic in equipment dot items. This way we can access the dictionary directly. And again, for key value in equipdic dot items, and then we set that attribute on the character equipment. So for example, item name on character equipment to the value, and that is good. And we can go on to the else statement here if our character doesn't have the equipment. At this point, we have the trans object dictionary that we had from before, so we can go ahead and use that. So trans object is going to take equip, so that's going to be, for example, relic or weapon or whatever, and this will return a class reference for that, and then we can go ahead and pass it the equipment deck. So that will create a new object instance, and then we can say set attribute character equip, and that will equal the new value. So that should be good. And one thing I'm thinking now actually is that instead of save character here, we should really do update character. And that should be excellent. So what I'm actually going to do is, I was about to change this to edit update character to update that, but we're actually just going to go ahead and do that in line. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this here, pull this out, and for the reference, these should have had parentheses at the end of edit save character. It looks like we missed those last time. So we'll put edit.update character, self.edit.update character. So we're going to have to add that up here. self.edit, self.edit, and we don't forget our parentheses time. I'll go ahead and copy this down, and I will actually put that down here. So in case we cancel out of the save as, we won't bother updating the character. So our character is getting updated, he's getting saved, and then we will go ahead and go back to the loading screen. Everything looks dandy there. Alright, so we are now more or less done. The only thing we got to do is we got to handle this part right here. So I'm pretty sure we're running a bit late this episode again. It's hard for me to tell. You know, you keep on hearing me say this and then it ends up being 25-minute episode or whatever. You know, I noticed that after I'm done editing. And the reason is that I edit out most of the typing, and as well as occasionally if I gotta pause and take a quick think or go to the bathroom or something like that, I'll go ahead and just, you know, end up editing that out, but I don't pause during the recording. So that explains that, why I might say, you know, this episode is running late, but it's only 25 minutes. I shoot for 30 minutes, but regardless, this one probably is a bit late. A quick memo from the edit desk. As I am saying this, the video, having been edited, is now of length 21 minutes and 52 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and save that for next time, and then we will run the code next time, and we will look at other things that we have to do, and I will get that in mind. I'll start thinking about the other things that we got to do and let you know when we get there. Otherwise, our code is looking much, much better, and things are doing only serve one purpose at this point, so that is excellent. So, until I see you next, have a wonderful afternoon, day, or evening, wherever you're at in the world, and I will catch you later.